Hey everyone, it's time for the Shorty Shootout, round 3. We have the Callaway Epic Flash Sub-Zero in 9 degrees with a neutral draw hosel setting versus the Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero 10.5 degree in the 1 degree minus loft and draw hosel setting with the heavyweight in the forward position. The Epic Flash is in a Fujikura EXS Purple 7.2 shaft with a Golf Pride CP2 Pro mid-size grip. The Rogue is in a Steadfast 80 gram extra stiff flex shaft with a Golf Pride CP2 wrap grip. However, upon measuring this shaft, it's actually coming in at 94 grams and is much closer to a double or triple extra stiff shaft. Both drivers are built up to a total playing length of 42 inches. The Rogue is a bit of an outlier in this test as it is the only head at 10.5 degrees instead of 9 degrees of static loft. I've attempted to mitigate this a little bit by reducing the hosel setting by 1 degree of loft. And the shaft itself is incredibly stiff, so if you believe that stiffer shafts are lower spinning shafts, then that might also contribute towards a more fair test. The Epic Flash and the Rogue are coming in at swing weights of B7 and C1 respectively. And here are the specs for the Epic Flash, all of which are pretty standard. And here are the specs for the Rogue. Notice the much heavier total weight due to the heavy shaft. Alright, as always, we're going to start off our simulator session with some warm-up shots. We'll warm up with a shorter club that I brought, and then we'll hit some shots with both of the other drivers to make sure that the swing is feeling good tonight. And as always, I will show every single shot from the warm-up and all of the data collection shots that I take tonight. And just continuing the warm-up with the drivers now. This is the first time I've ever actually hit this driver with this shaft in it, so the first couple warm-up shots were pretty rough, and I think I roofed the second one pretty hard, so you can laugh at me for that one. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, I was not confident after that warm-up. It was rough. And a couple with the Rogue as well to make sure I'm nice and warm. I did start to notice some simulator issues at this point. Some of the practice shots weren't reading, and some of them are reading just really wild ball speeds. So that'll come into play a little bit later. But I'll make sure to only count the shots with correctly read data in the end results. And now switching to the yellow balls to collect some real data with the Epic Flash. These shots were very surprising. I was hitting some absolutely great shots, super high ball speeds. I was getting a little worried that the simulator issues were the cause of the high ball speeds, but they were consistently high throughout the whole set, so I think it was just the driver performing a lot better than I expected it to. And we'll take a look at the data here in a second. And as I mentioned, we were averaging 155 miles an hour ball speed, which is about 5 higher than usual, with a launch angle nearing 15 degrees. And moving on to the Rogue, all of these shots read correctly, and we kept all 6 for the data. Here are the data for the first 6 shots. Ball speed was a little bit on the low side, launch angle looked good to me, and the grouping was very tight. I was pretty happy with these results. And now the second set of shots with the Epic Flash. This is where both I and the simulator started to have some issues. The first 2 shots were just terrible swings. I had to eliminate those from the data because they were just embarrassingly awful. It's my handicap showing up right there. With the remaining shots, however, they were all really good, really high ball speeds, but one of them did not read correctly, and the other one read at 168 miles per hour ball speed, which I'd love to take credit for, but was obviously a misread. So a lot more simulator issues with this second set. Here were the 3 shots I actually kept from that group of 7 shots. The numbers were consistent with the first group of shots that I took and were equally impressive. Here was that one shot I was talking about where it gave me insane high ball speeds. I'm pretty sure this was a misread, so I eliminated it from the data. And here are all 12 or 10 shots that I kept put together. I had one that pushed off to the right, but generally the group was pretty tight with this driver. I was very impressed. And the final group with the Rogue continued to have simulator issues. I think I had to re-hit 2 or 3 of the shots in this group of 6. They just refused to read on the monitor. It was getting pretty frustrating, but luckily this driver is really forgiving, so every swing I put on it in this second group was at least pretty decent. So I kept the ones that did read and didn't eliminate any of them. And here are the data from the second set. A little bit faster ball speeds, a little bit higher launch, really tight group. The simulator actually shut off on me due to the fact that I had to re-hit several balls and I ran out of time, so I was not able to capture a screenshot of all 12 shots put together. Sorry about that. We had some pretty surprising results, in my opinion here. Unlike the previous 2 tests where one driver edged out the other one, I think we pretty much have an objective winner here, but let's go over the specifics anyway. On the left, we have the Callaway Epic Flash Sub-Zero, and on the right, we have the Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero. First off, ball speed. I've never really tested the Epic Flash Sub-Zero against a launch monitor before, so I didn't really have any idea of how hot that driver would be, but man, I was getting some crazy ball speed numbers. To the point where I actually re-hit this club after the official testing was done just to make sure that I wasn't getting some misreads on the data, but it came back. I was still averaging about 154 miles per hour. At the same time, despite the lower static loft, it was launching 14, almost 15 degrees. And this is over the span of the full range of shots. Comparing that to the Rogue Sub-Zero, the ball speed of 150 miles an hour is pretty close to what we've been seeing with the previous drivers in this test, and the launch angle of 12.6 degrees is also pretty much what we've been seeing for drivers in the 9 to 9.5 degrees of loft range. I was having a few issues with data reading not being as accurate as I would have liked from the simulator, so From these numbers, I have removed those shots that were particularly off, and we reviewed those a little bit earlier in the video. Moving on to the more subjective categories with looks. I'm not a huge fan of the Epic Flash Sub-Zero. Green isn't my favorite color, but I can look past that for the most part. It's the crown that I don't like. Just something about it kind of looks cheap, off-brand, a little chintzy. It's not my favorite thing to look down at. The shape is pretty good, but Callaway drivers in general and the Epic Flash Sub-Zero specifically just don't really appeal to me as much. Subjectively, I think the Rogue looks pretty decent. And once again, the shape of Callaway drivers and the glossy crown isn't my favorite thing about them, and I'm not a huge fan of the chevron for the alignment mark. But at the same time, the blue color and the graphics and shaping on the bottom of the driver are actually pretty cool to me. So subjectively, while it's not my favorite, it does get a higher score than the Epic Flash Sub-Zero. Confidence level was an interesting one. With the Epic Flash Sub-Zero, I was confident that it was going to give me great ball speed regardless of what swing I put on it. At the same time, the good strikes with this club felt awesome. They felt super solid. And the sound, while it was a bit pitchy for me, it wasn't terrible either. I know a lot of people are divided on the sound of this driver, so I thought it was pretty okay. And once again, I always felt like the ball was going to be a good shot if I put a good swing on it. With the Rogue, I also gave it an 8 out of 10 for confidence. Not because I thought it was going to be a really long shot or go super far or even feel very good, but rather my grouping was super tight with this driver. It probably had to do with a little bit more spin, neutralizing that spin axis. But at the same time, my grouping was super tight with it, so when it comes to hitting fairways, I was probably a little bit more confident than I was with the Epic Flash. Overall, both drivers performed better than I expected in this test. They're notorious for being unforgiving drivers, and also the shaft in the Rogue Sub-Zero was not an ideal shaft for this sort of testing. So overall, I think they did a little bit better than average, but I'd have to say the Epic Flash Sub-Zero with the crazy ball speed that was consistently high is going to take the win with an A- over the Rogue Sub-Zero, which gave me a B+.